Alessa brewed a minuscule wind funnel between her palms. The faint echo of Hugo's gift only lasted a moment, but she offered it back to him anyway. The empty space it left behind felt like penance. Her knees ached, but she didn't stand until the last stragglers found their seats. It wasn't easy. Every minute spent mourning was one she didn't get to spend choosing her next fonte, and she didn't have time to spare. Or fontes, for that matter. On one side of the aisle, the 12 members of the Consiglio watched her with inscrutable eyes. Always watching, always waiting. First, for her to be old enough to choose a partner, and then for her to choose another, and another after that. Soon, they'd summon her next victim. Partner. Her next partner. She had to get it right this time. The Consiglio would have her next choice dragged to the Cittadella at sword point if needed, but she wanted someone willing. On her way to her seat, Alessa paused to curtsy before Renata Ortiz, the previous Finestra, whose power had winked out the day Alessas blossomed 5 years ago. Renata nodded, cool and aloof, while her fonte, Tomohiro Miyamoto, offered a sympathetic smile. They were a good pairing, a great pairing. Exactly what Finestra and fonte should be. A familiar pull of envy threatened to drag Alessa under as they laced their hands together. She'd give anything for a hand to hold. Or a hug. She would kill for a hug. Literally. Alessa took her seat, pressing a fist to her mouth before a sharp inhalation became a giggle, or worse, a sob. Stiff, black fabric pulled across her chest as she steadied her breathing. If she'd known how often she'd need one, she would have asked for a new morning gown after the first wear. Adric slid in beside her, tugging his lapels and doing his best to look forlorn. "No weeping for good old Hugo, little sister," he murmured, barely moving his lips. "Lucky for me, there was an open seat beside you." "There's always an open seat beside me." Alessa squeezed her gloved hands together in a vain attempt to warm her fingers. Renata shot Alessa a look of warning from across the aisle. It wasn't her fault Adric didn't respect rules. He might even be willing to hug her, but she'd never ask. A Finestra wasn't supposed to touch anyone but their chosen fonte until after divorando. And it was too dangerous to chance. The thought of her twin brother laid out on the altar turned her stomach. He should have sat somewhere else. The Finestra was expected to sever all ties from her previous life. Above and apart. Always. She wasn't even supposed to think of him as her twin anymore, and she definitely wasn't supposed to speak to him. "Pick the next one yet?" Adric signed as the choir began rustling in place. Sort of. Their nonno was deaf, so they were fluent in sign language, but the whispered half-signs he'd shaped in his lap were a bastardization of language only she could interpret. Papa would be mortified. But Papa wasn't there, and he wasn't her Papa anymore. "Still deciding," she signed back. "Better hurry," he said, switching to a hoarse whisper. "A dozen fled Severio in the past month." Dread pulled in her stomach. She'd lost track of how many eligible fontes remained on the island, but she couldn't afford to scare off more. She resisted the urge to turn and see who was left. All fontes were blessed at birth with defensive magic: fire, wind, water, earth, electricity, and so forth. And thus they were respected and revered, considered a precious resource whether they were chosen to serve or not. Each fonte received a generous annual stipend, was exempted from military duty, and was protected from harm. Until they weren't.